Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scot McKay.
Hey, all right, gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. As always, I am your host, Scot McKay. You can find me on YouTube, on X, on TikTok, at Scot McKay. The only place I'm really not at Scot McKay, I'm at Real Scot McKay, and that is on Instagram. If you have not joined the Facebook group yet, we've had probably more guys join that in the past week since when we first started, which is exciting. So that group is still growing. We want you to be a part of it. It's a great group for guys who are sick of joining men's groups on Facebook only to have a bunch of complaining and bitching about their girlfriends and so forth. We're not like that. We're all positive and we have a lot of fun. The website is mountaintoppodcast.com. Hey, have you gotten your hands on my new audio program, Women and AI, yet? Listen, I've done more thinking about this than any other dating coach out there, and I've put all of my results, all of my research into one audio program for you that will cost you less than your lunch today will cost you. So check that out by going to mountaintoppodcast.com/women and AI. That's WOMENANDAI. With me today is a brand new guest. We've never had her on before. I was chatting with her, getting to know her briefly before we started the show, and I think you guys are really going to like her. As a matter of fact, I know you guys are really going to like her. Her name is Beth Warford, and she is living in sunny North Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota to be exact, at the moment. When we're recording this, it's almost Thanksgiving, and that's where the laughs came from with the sunny North Dakota part. But it's a beautiful state. I've personally been there. And Beth Warford is the head honcha over at Pretty Loaded. Now, I'm going to let her tell you what she does for a living, but the topic today is how to be a protector of women, how to be a man who makes women feel even more protected. You guys already know we talk about this a lot, but boy, are we going to put a new spin on it for you today. That's really going to, make you feel like even a better man when we're done. That's what it's all about. Beth Warford from Bismarck, North Dakota. Welcome.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me. Quite the honor to be on your podcast.
Yeah. It's great to have you on board this show. I found out about your gig. I stumbled upon it looking for something online, and I immediately knew I wanted to get a hold of you and have you talk to these guys. Tell us what you do all day long. Tell us what your gig is. It's called Pretty Loaded, and I mean, that's great branding right there. But I want you to tell us in your own words what your mission is.
Right. Well, 9 years ago, I was almost assaulted with my two daughters, and I was at a school event. It was a Saturday at 10 in the morning. And luckily for me, my brother came to my rescue. This absolutely changed my life. And I decided to look out and see what was out there in the self-defense world. And I found martial arts and I found guns. And I knew there was more to it. So I started to research criminals and who they are and who they target. And I found out so many different things like situational awareness and pre-attack body indicators and all these things that can help people decrease violence in their life. So I started a company at the age of 39, and I had 4 daughters under the age of 9.
Wow. So you're a girl mom. You got any sons or just the 4 daughters?
Nope. Just the 4 daughters. Yeah. And so I knew that, it was incredibly hard to start this company, but I would get up at like 4 in the morning and just research things. And then I got into video, and I started to create just a different way of training. It's definitely preventative training. And so what I currently do now is I create custom videos for large corporations. I also do webinars, I do live training, and I do a lot of online training. And it is all to decrease crime. Most people don't know that opportunistic predators are 20% of the population. So I always say, what is the chance that you're going to cross the path of an opportunistic predator at some time in your life? It's probable. Right? So why not have the skills to know how to respond, to know what to do and how to be a hard target?
Well, I think all that's fantastic. And, man, I don't know how much you know about me or how we roll around here, but, I'm one of those guys who prefers gritty women. I think gritty is not
Right.
anti-feminine. I think mental toughness, physical toughness.
Yes.
You don't have to be a butch. You don't have to check your feminine card at the door. You could be all woman all the time and still, not be a shrinking violet. And I think it's wonderful. And mostly you're teaching women. Is that true?
That is not true. I would say it's half and half, men and women in the corporate world.
No kidding.
And then, yeah. And honestly, men are targets as well. Most people don't think that men are assaulted. Man, I can tell you stories, especially in the urban areas right now. All these people, hybrid workers going back to work, all the homeless population, the drug addicts. I will be training going into Christmas. I will be training corporations. This has never been done in the past. Actually, it started up last year, but the crime and the violence is unbelievable right now in urban cities.
Well, I believe you. I mean, we can just look at the news, and if we're looking at honest news sources, they'll tell us exactly what's going on. Sometimes they try to play political hot potato with what's going on, but I want to circle back to what you just said about 20% of the population being an opportunistic predator. That means 1 in 5 people have this in them, or 1 in 5 people have actually done this, or if they had the chance, or what?
Yeah, studies have shown that if they can get away with it, so it might be like if they can steal something, right? If you can do something bad and not be caught, will you do it? And they 10 to 20% answer yes, they will do it.
Beth, it's been years, probably a couple decades since I actually saw this study, and I have no idea how accurate it is or who the sample was or how it was conducted. But they apparently did a study. I mean, I'm assuming it was peer reviewed because it landed in a journal somewhere and was widely publicized, pretty much in the early days of the internet, that they polled men and said, if you could rape the woman of your choice and there was 100% chance that you would get away with it, no one would ever hear about it, and it would be kept secret, would you do it? And the percentage of positive responses was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying.
That's one of the things. It is horrifying. That's one of the things I'm talking about as well. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
So
yeah, just where are the morals, right?
Right, exactly. So your brother, of course, he steps up and stands up and protects his sis. I don't want to dredge up any bad memories, but what exactly happened there, or almost happened? What was the predator trying to do, and how did your brother step in?
I was sitting at a hockey game, and I went out to get my daughter some chips. And out of nowhere, I just felt something, like something was wrong. And I looked behind me, and there's this guy just staring me down. Look, he literally was giving me a look like he wanted to kill me.
What a creep.
I ran back into the game. Yeah, I ran back into the game, and I didn't get the chips, obviously, right? And so at the end of the game, well, I told my sister, I'm like, this guy just like came out of nowhere. And she's like, Beth, this guy in the stands is staring you down. And I had no idea who he was. At the end of the game, we're waiting outside of the locker room, and this guy comes up and he is shaking, and I'm holding my daughter's hands. He's just giving me the most evil eye, like he was just going to jump me. And my brother came up, and he came into the game. He came back into the game to tell me something, and he came up and he came up to that guy, and the guy just like took off, just ran. But I literally froze. I didn't know what to do. And that's what you will do if you don't have this mindset and you don't have training. That was the wrong thing to do. I've been doing the wrong thing my whole life. I've been fearful my whole life. I've been having little or no eye contact. That's the worst thing you can do, right? It's like an easy target type thing. So just the fact that he came up and he stood by me, and the guy just took off. So it was terrifying, though. My daughters were actually crying. They were so afraid of this guy.
That's just horrible. That's awful.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. Your brother came up, and the guy was such a coward, he just immediately turned tail and ran.
Exactly.
God,
yes.
It's just awful. I'm so glad that changed your life and that inspired you, because you're absolutely dead on accurate. It's not only women who need to learn how to not be a soft target. It's also we as men. And that should be obvious. But, so many men out there, myself included, are like, I'm man enough for this. I don't need anybody's help. I don't need directions. You know how we are.
Right.
And
right.
Yet, the tougher the guy, we have guys who've been on this show who are Navy SEALs, military officers, special forces guys, former FBI guys, and they teach sometimes something similar to what you teach, sometimes something completely different. Lots of masculinity guys. Like we've had John Lovell on the show, who's, big gun guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Former special forces. And yet they are the same guys who are the biggest proponents of not being a soft target, making sure you're vigilant, looking around. They're the last guys who would say, no, I don't need any help at this. I need training with this. I need to be better at it. And I don't find that ironic because, when these guys have been trained and, like if you're a Navy SEAL, you're a killing machine and an information gathering machine, right? And a lot of first responders, police officers are like that also. Mm-hmm. Some of what they keep in mind on a daily basis keeps their family safe, keeps them safe, and keeps the crime from happening. And those are some of the quote unquote toughest, most quote unquote macho guys out there. So there's really no excuse for the rest of us, is there?
No, there's not. And we always like to say the best fight is the one you are never in, right?
Boom.
How many people actually want to be brutally fighting somebody? And that's why we teach, cross the street. If you see, we teach to profile. And I know a lot of people don't like the word profile, but we teach to profile on not on race or gender, but on how somebody is acting. So if somebody's just hanging out on the street, loitering, like Scott, when is the last time you had time to go hang out on the street and just watch people? It's these criminals that are just hanging out, and you can pick out these criminals every single day. It's very easy. But so if you see somebody just hanging on the street, cross the street or walk next to somebody. If you're walking alone, ask somebody, hey, can I walk with you? Because you're less of a target if you're with another person. But you have to have strong body language. You have to walk with purpose. You have to have strong eye contact, right? Because we know the first thing predators look for is an easy, weak target, somebody who's buried, their head in their phone. And so if somebody makes you nervous, I want you to stare back at them like, I see you, I know who you are, not me, not today, right? And you change your body language. Universal sign for stop is a palm out. If you need to be rude, you need to have a strong command presence. But we know this about criminals. They want the weakest, easiest target. They don't want a fighter.
Now, I find that interesting you would say that, because that seems as if you're meeting a potential confrontation with proactive, almost confrontational energy. Like I'm bigger and stronger than you, or I'm ready for you. I'm not a victim at the very least.
Right. I see you. Don't challenge me. Right. And it's the way you move your body, you blade your body, right? Because now it looks like you're pretty smart. You can put your hand in your pocket, like you might have a flashlight, pepper gel, whatever you might have, but you need to create space from this person. You need to create distance, but I don't want you backing up like you're a coward. I want you moving. We call it getting off the X to the left or the right, because if they would run at you and try to push you or do something, it would take away like 60% of the blow. So there's just different, there's easier people on the street than you. If you respond like that, there's easier people to rob from than you. So that's who they're going to go after.
Define blade your body.
Turning your body at an angle, kind of. So you're not squared up to that person. So they don't have like your whole body. So it's easier for you to kick if your foot is in front of you and you're bladed, or run. But it also looks like you might have some training in martial arts or something else as well. Yeah. But most of the time, if I see a confrontation like that, I'm going to cross the street. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go. If I'm really scared, I'm going to go into a store. Now, if I had to do something and they didn't step down, well, then that's when you escalate to the next level. Okay.
We're going to talk about that for sure. But yes, that's the first thing that came to mind, was that Taekwondo teaches that stance. And when you go to the DMZ in Korea, where the border is between North Korea and South Korea, the Korean guards, at least from the South Korean side, always position themselves motionlessly like statues in that stance facing the north. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I thought that was really, really masculine and cool.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm going to give you a real life situation. Okay. And I want you to tell me whether I did it right or what I could have done differently.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you the whole situation so that you have as much information you need to coach me. All right?
Okay.
I don't do this very often on this show, so these guys are probably raising their eyebrows going, okay, McKay, wow. All right. Recently, I took my family by car to North Carolina for my mom's 80th birthday. Had a great weekend. And we like to do that drive in as little time as possible. So we left. It was basically almost rush hour by the time we left to come home. We have a 22-hour drive. I have 2 dogs, my son, my daughter, and my wife in the car, and myself. And we are in probably southern Georgia. So we're a quarter of the way through. And it's about 10 o'clock at night. And I need gas.
Oh, boy.
And I stopped at a gas station, did my typical thing, right? And I had a guy look at me square in the eye from across the lot and goes, "I don't like you, and I'm effing sick of you." He pointed out.
Wow.
All right. And that's not, in my estimation, something sane people do for no apparent freaking reason, right?
Right.
And so I did what you would call profiling, and I know crazy when I see it. And I know I can't outrun or outsmart a gun being wielded by a crazy person. Mm-hmm. So I casually took myself out of view behind the pump, put the pump back up and didn't pump the gas, calmly put my stuff back together, screwed the cap back on the tank, calmly, collectively walked back around the car, and I left. I didn't address him. I didn't talk to him. I did nothing. I stood down. Okay?
Yep.
And here's why I didn't confront him. I didn't give him the handout. I didn't give him the eye contact. Because I had too much to lose. I didn't want a civil lawsuit or whatever. I mean, even if I would have beaten the crap out of this guy, if he was drunk or crazy or whatever, I would have still lost anytime there's an altercation there, because then I would have to come deal with a lawsuit or something like that. I really just wanted to get my family the hell home.
Right.
Because I'm in the middle of a trip here. So the last thing I did in my mature male mind is want to play hero ball here. This guy's a nut job. I'm not giving him the privilege of having an adult conversation with me, because it doesn't sound like this is going to be one to begin with. And I left. So I went 2 blocks down and he followed me.
No.
He got in his car and he followed me to the next gas station and he parked. And I was already pumping gas. And what I did was I just nonchalantly kept a very, very careful eye.
Mm-hmm.
And he got out of the car and did make eye contact with me and went into the convenience store. But I probably gave myself about half a tank and said, I'm not going to stick around for this.
Yeah, right.
And then I kept it all low key when I got back in the car, because I didn't want to freak anybody out, especially my kids. But I did tell my wife why we didn't fill with gas at the first station. And she saw the car come in at the second gas station a couple blocks down, and it was the same guy. And I could feel that was probably going to make her uneasy. And again, I'm all about my family's safety. I don't want to play hero ball. So I truncated filling up the gas tank, put it back, and I left. So a lot of guys are probably thinking, well, you're a big pussy, McKay. Right?
No.
But I think I did what I wanted to do and what I had to do to keep living my normal freaking life. You know what I mean? I just don't want anything to do with this dude. So we went about 30, 40 miles down, and he didn't follow us down the highway. Thank God. That would have been really, really weird.
Mm-hmm.
And got gas filled up at Buc-ee's or somewhere in Alabama, which was probably even a better choice. And everybody forgot it happened. So what did I do wrong? What did I do right?
Okay, well, I think you did a lot of things right. So first off, gas stations are fringe areas, high crime area. So whenever I pick a gas station, it's going to be the busiest gas station. And I know that you said it was, late at night, right? But so pick a pump that is closest to the attendance station and pick a gas station that has a lot of lighting. When you get out and fuel your car up, right, you're watching around, you're navigating all around your car to watch for anyone. You start fueling up, but then you get back in your car and you lock the door. A lot of people do this wrong. Don't stand at the gas station pump when you're fueling up. This is when people come up to you. This is when people ask you for money. This is the worst time. Always remember that if you have to get out of there, if somebody came up, if you're sitting in the car and they come up with a gun, they're breakaway pumps. Just drive off. So you did a lot of things right. You got back in the car and you left. And then the second time when you were fueling up, the fact that you were paying attention and you were noticing your surroundings, that guy probably left you alone because he saw that you had awareness. And so I think you did the absolute correct thing. And I mean, I call it the 90-10 rule, right? 90% of men would not be screaming at somebody saying, "Hey, I don't like you," and yelling at you, right? That's 10% of the population. That's the crazies, the
Well, that's
weirdos
psychotic.
that are going to hurt you. It's psychotic. Yeah. So it was wonderful that you did that. I think you did a lot of things right.
Okay.
But what most people do, most people just stand at the pump, they watch TV. I mean, these are the people that are getting mugged all the time. So yeah, I think you're bigger for that. And I had an interesting story at a gas station as well. My husband was fueling up, and people need to tell their husbands or their partners or whoever they're with, like, roll down the window and be like, "Hey, this guy is really crazy." My husband was fueling up and he was going to get back in the car, but this guy pulled up and started rifling through the trash. And then he started to walk towards my husband, and he looked like he was on drugs. And my husband jumped in the car and locked the door. Now, my husband is a concealed carry holder, and he is very proficient with a gun. He takes tons of training. Did my husband want to shoot that man and have a confrontation? Absolutely not. He got in the car and he locked the door. You don't ruin your life because some crazy person is coming at you. You can avoid these people. You can get away from these people most of the time.
Fully the first half of my day-long concealed carry training was preventative action.
Right,
how to mitigate risk, how to de-escalate. Yeah. Because you don't want to go around capping people and getting civil lawsuits and killing people and needing therapy because you did something you never thought you'd have to do. I mean,
Right.
Despite what some of the people in this United States who are kind of not so keen on the Second Amendment want you to believe, most of the people who have guns, even in the gun-rich United States, don't really want to use them to murder people.
Right.
It's basically as a last resort deterrent, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely last resort.
So let's hear some other ways that men in particular can be their own first responder, because I know you talk about that. And indeed, if I would have called 911 when this guy was confronting me at the gas station, it would have been too late by the time they got there, right?
Right.
So you kind of have to be responsible for your own personal security. How can these guys become more like that guy, even if they never even thought about being a police officer or even a security watchman at night or anything like that? I don't think I'm bad, don't box, no karate, that kind of thing. How can I be better at this quickly?
First thing is paying attention to your surroundings, looking for anything that is out of place. And you're not paranoid. You're just in a relaxed state of, awareness. You're confident. You're scanning around. And I think it's very attractive. And that's one of the reasons why I married my husband. He was so protective of me. And it's just important to be aware of your surroundings, not only because you're looking for things out of place, but you might be helping a little old lady that just fell down in the parking lot and nobody else saw her, but now you're picking her up off the floor. It's about being a good person. It's about noticing what's going on in your environment. And it's not, walking with your head buried in your phone. I see women and men doing this. And it's strong body language. You're walking with your head up, strong eye contact. It's avoiding the bad situations as well.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. One of the things I learned from a first responder friend of mine, years and years and years ago, was whenever you go to a restaurant, always sit in the chair facing the door.
Yes.
Never turn your back to the door if you're the guy who's going to be responsible for protecting those with you. So you can read the room, literally, from a security perspective. I thought that was great advice. I do it automatically now.
Yeah, and always whenever you're anywhere, find all the exits. If you're in a restaurant and there's a shooter comes in or something, go out the kitchen, right? If you're at a concert and there's a shooter, you go over the stage. There are no rules when there's an active shooter. And so when you're walking down the street, have exit strategies in mind. If you can't get away, you can use a car as a barrier, to run around the car to keep away from that person, whoever's trying to get you. There's all sorts of things that you can do, but exit strategy is very important because a lot of times in an active shooting scenario, the people who went into that store, they are panicking and they try to go out the exit that they came in. And that's a deadly funnel. That's usually where the shooter would be. So, hey, can I go out the back of Costco? Can I go out the back of these stores? Absolutely. There's no rules, right? So I think it's very important that you think about these things. It's important to tactically park your car when you go somewhere so you can easily just drive out.
Man, oh, that's fantastic. And you know what I'm thinking as you're talking, Beth, is we can sort of turn this into a game. It's like playing a video game. When we walk into a place, we can kind of make this a habit that's fun, you know. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about this on first dates? Say, here's the kind of guy I am. I want to make sure we sit here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to face the door because I'm a guy who's all about security. Well, that would be kind of a turn on for a guy to bring that up, wouldn't it?
I absolutely think it is. And I think that men do need to be the protector. I mean, you're not always going to be with the man in your life, right? So as a woman, it's important that you know how to take care of things too. But I think it's incredibly attractive if they would say that to me on a first date. But also when I go out and I'm with my girlfriends, I do that. You know, I'm sitting and watching the door. And I said to my friend the other day, I'm like, watch this guy. He's going for your purse. Because you can tell when people stare at their intended target, whether it's you or their purse or their bag or whatever it is. And I said to her, I said, grab your purse. He's coming for your purse. Sure enough, he was. And she snatched it and got it before he did. But yeah, I think we need more men as protectors.
I think all men should be protectors.
Absolutely.
Gay, straight, whatever. This isn't even really about women. This is about feeling good about yourself as a man. And there's a primal element of satisfaction at the masculine, deep, primal level, like I said, of knowing you're a guy who makes people safe when they're around. And, you know, full disclosure here, I am not a physically large guy, but over the years, because of my demeanor and how I carry myself and the decision-making skills I've developed, I tend to make women feel very safe and comfortable because, you know, it isn't really a jungle out there. You're not going to have thugs and criminals trying to beat you down every day. But there are everyday things that go on during the course of life where I think some guys do a much better job at making the woman feel safe and protected than other guys do just over the course of a normal day. Let me give you an example, and this is coming out of left field. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this. Driving a car, a motor vehicle. A lot of young guys are like, hey, y'all, hold my beer, watch this, trying to impress women with how they drive. And I'm thinking it's probably a lot more impressive to a woman that you don't drive like a maniac and she feels like maybe she could fall asleep on the way back from this weekender and get home alive. Am I right about that?
Right. Correct.
Yeah. Anything to add there? I mean, how can we be a better driver? What can we do behind the wheel to make women feel safe and comfortable?
Well, you just have to be a solid person you have to have common sense, right? Nobody finds it attractive if you're reckless as a man, especially. I don't know. I come from I'm getting pretty old. I'm almost 50. So I'm not attracted to men that sit on the couch and watch football or play video games, or I like the man that is going to be working and yet, you know, having fun, but is providing for the family and is protecting me. That's what I'm attracted to, though.
No matter what they're doing.
Right.
Well, I do have a couple thoughts on the driving thing. First of all, if you've had alcohol, get an Uber. You know what I mean? Yeah, I also think that most men would do well not only to take defensive driving, but to get online and learn what they call affectionately offensive driving. Mm-hmm. Go to a race car school. Learn how to handle a vehicle. Get a motorcycle license and go to their training course where they teach you to scan traffic at every intersection the way you would scan the room when you're in a bar at night. The equivalent of sitting in the chair that faces the door when you're behind the wheel of a car. I am paranoid when I drive a car because I have a motorcycle license. There are a couple intersections pretty close to my neighborhood where there's like this rock wall that prohibits you from kind of seeing the traffic coming on the right-hand side. I almost come to a stop even at a stale green light there because I'm just expecting some guy to come barreling through there and hit me broadside. Right. And I think that makes me more of a protector than less of one.
Absolutely. Well, 40% of all accidents are in intersections. I do videos on safe driving, and my kids go crazy when I'm driving because I stop way back. Like I need to see the rear tires in front of me. And that's because, you know, if somebody's going to hit you from behind or if you need to get out of the way or drive around, you know, I always drive in the outer lanes. Carjacking is up like 800% right now. And so it's very, very imperative that you're aware when you're driving and that you know how to drive.
Talk to me a little bit more about the kind of situations that only a bonehead would get themselves into anyway, especially when we have a woman with us, and how to avoid that.
I would say being at a store and trying to be hyper masculine. And so somebody wants the last toilet paper, right? And then getting in a fight over the toilet paper or the bag of rice or whatever it is. Instead of fighting about something like that. And by the way, when somebody's arguing with you and they go from arguing to complete silence, it's right before they're going to hit you or do something physically to you. So instead of arguing with a complete stranger and trying to be right, I would just de-escalate the situation and say, hey man, this is yours. This is your last bag of rice. I don't need this, and walk away. I think a lot of people get in trouble with alcohol when they're out in public. That's just not a good idea. You know, alcohol obviously impairs everything. So that's the wrong thing to do there. But I think it says more about a man to stand down to a raging idiot or a raging psychopath than to try to fight that person.
Couple situations that come to mind. First of all, the obvious one, the dreaded ATM machine. For goodness sakes,
geez.
Plan ahead, go get your cash before you go out at night, men or women.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
Daylight, people around. Don't get yourself into a situation where you got to go to a dark corner where there happens to be an ATM machine searching for cash at 2 a.m. Just avoid the situation.
Not smart.
Right. There's certain venues that it's just a bad idea to take a pretty girl with you. Don't put yourself into those situations. Do a little research before you take a woman to a certain place on a date. I think that's a really, really good one. I have one last question for you, because I think this is the proverbial stickiest wicket of all when it comes to this. What if you're out and some bonehead just completely dishonors the woman you're with, or does something that is completely disrespectful to the woman you're with? How do you respond to that? Do you respond, or do you stand down and say, come on, let's go?
I would. So again, that's the 90-10 rule, right? So you're dealing with a crazy person, because how many people would disrespect a woman like that? I would get them out of the situation. I would get the person behind me. What I usually do is I teach families and also partners to have a code word. So if somebody's feeling uncomfortable or something is just kind of wrong, you might say something, a word that you never use, like cobra, or, you know, something that just doesn't come up in a conversation. But when you say this word, immediately, you know, something is wrong. You have to react, and you have to get out of that situation.
Wow. Safe words aren't just for the bedroom anymore. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Because if you're not paying attention and I see something, or my husband sees something, or your partner, and you have a safe word with that person, and that means you watch everything I do. There's somebody threatening us right now. We need to go. It's time to go. You know, it's important to know that, especially with your children. You know, you have to have your hands on your children when you say the safe word. You have to get them behind you, and you have to come up with a plan.
Let's talk about when your kids are with you.
Okay.
How does that change compared to when you're a man and there's a woman with you? You have now the woman in your life, and if you're a dad, you have your kids, or maybe even her kids, someone else's kids, any kids, right?
Right.
What is that extra that has to be stacked on to what you would normally do when you have kids with you?
Well, it depends if they're infants or they're able to walk on their own. But man, I mean,
sure.
you're more at risk. So you definitely have to be hyper aware. You know, in a parking lot, park in the very first rows if you can, because there's video cameras, there's a lot of foot traffic. This is where the least crime happens, right? You always want to have your eyeballs on your children at all times, even up until the age of, I would say 10, depending on how big they are.
Okay.
When they're going into restrooms are huge fringe areas. You know, go into the restroom and make sure there's not any crazy people in there. But always having your eyes on the children, being careful when you're loading your groceries. So people are surprised about this, but most people load their children first before groceries, but that's wrong. Because somebody could come up and now take your keys, and now they're taking your car and your child is with them. So children into the car after everything is loaded. And also there's no rules. If somebody is scaring you and making you nervous, you don't have to put your kid in a seatbelt, 5-point harness seatbelt, right? Just put your kid on your lap, get your kid in the car. Don't even put your seatbelt on. Get the hell out of there. drive off until you can get to a location where now you can get your child into the seatbelt. So most people kind of panic in that situation and they think, oh, I have to perfectly put my kid in this car seat. No, you don't if somebody's threatening you.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me how in certain crisis management situations, people will default to habit. Like you see these situations or you hear about them anecdotally of a plane making an emergency landing at an airport and they deploy the slides and people are getting up, grabbing their luggage. You know? Meanwhile, the flight attendants are imploring them, leave this airplane. You know, there's smoke in the cabin and people are, I think I'm just going to get my luggage. And it's human nature. I mean, you can be like, oh my God, I got to get out of this house. I am late for what I'm up to. I mean, this is going to date me a little bit, but your landline rings and you answer the phone. You know?
Yeah.
It's not going to be an emergency. Why are you answering the phone? You had a bigger priority. So yeah, I could totally see a humanoid making sure their kid is all nicely, safely buckled up in the car seat as this maniac is approaching at high speed with a knife, you know.
Right.
It's just people are really strange that way, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah, right. Quick lightning round question and we're done. Is it anti-masculine for a man to carry pepper spray?
No, absolutely not. It's not anti-masculine at all. We recommend pepper gel, actually, instead of pepper spray.
What about that bear spray?
Yeah, bear spray's fine too. But be careful about what pepper gel you use. The law enforcement uses Saber Red. So there's different pepper sprays that don't work at all. But I think it's very masculine to carry that because you don't know when you're going to need it and what situation you're going to need it, right? Because if somebody's threatening you, are you at the level where you can pull your gun out and shoot them? Or what if you don't even have a gun? That's fine. You don't have to have a gun. I don't think everybody should have a gun. But I think it's very masculine to carry pepper gel.
No, law enforcement does. Right?
Absolutely. All of the smart people carry pepper gel. Yes.
Well, I certainly don't want to be stupid, so maybe that'll change my life, this last conversation. Her name is Beth Warford. She's from Pretty Loaded, which is a great brand. And
Thanks.
You're welcome. And you can go check out everything she's got going on her website by going to mountaintopodcast.com/loaded, right? LOADED. And I'm also going to drop a link to her excellent YouTube channel in the show notes for you guys at mountaintopodcast.com, which is Pretty Loaded ND probably for North Dakota, I'm guessing, right?
Correct.
Not like no dice or non-disclosure or anything like that.
Right.
And there you'll find out even more about what Beth's got going on and maybe get some of her training yourself. Beth, thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sure was. Great conversation with lots of unexpected twists and turns. And the guys usually report that they like those types of episodes the best. So fantastic, fantastic stuff. Gentlemen.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was actually in the true sense of the word. Gentlemen, if you have not been to mountaintoppodcast.com lately, be sure to check out our sponsors, including Hero Soap. Now, let me tell you something about Hero Soap. Not only are they giving 10% to first responders and wounded warriors and other guys who are very good at making women feel safe and secure, they have new items. And I just got a new shipment of goodies from John over at Hero Soap. And they have one called Death by Soap, which, I mean, I didn't even know what that was going to smell like, but let's just say it smells amazing. All kinds of masculine scents, and I'm still alive. Go figure, right? Even after using the soap. But there are all kinds of masculine scents. There's now shampoo from Hero Soap. Go to mountaintopodcast.com, Hero Soap, and get you some. And also the guys at Origin in Maine have put together a brand new website. They're not only doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff, the greatest jeans you've ever had, the greatest boots you've ever worn. They are now into hunting gear, fishing gear, all kinds of training gear. Man, they have just expanded. Origin in Maine is just blowing up in the best way possible. You guys have responded so powerfully to what they got going on. And when a company is run by Jocko Willink, how can it really go wrong? Once again, go to mountaintopodcast.com/origin to check out all the new goodies there. Finally, last but not least, you got the guys over at the Keyport, brand new face plates constantly. A lot of you guys have your everyday carry device from those guys already. Hey, you can dress it up in different ways. Pop one in, pop one out. matches your gear, matches your kit. It's so cool. This is not your grandfather's Swiss Army knife. Okay. This is something 21st century. And David and the rest of the guys over at Keyport are just great dudes, and they're all about having the best product possible. When you get something from any of our fine sponsors, please use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 for an additional 10% off. And guys, over at mountaintoppodcast.com, you can now check out Women and AI, my newest program on how you can deal with the confrontation, is what it is, that's coming at you from this new world of AI that you're gonna have to deal with. A lot of you guys are still in the dark about this. You're one audio away from having all the information you need to be much better at navigating the world of AI as it pertains to women dating, especially online dating, from this day forward. All that and more is there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.